We're in Port Colborne visiting one of the coolest mansions, historical mansions, that is built in 1860, which is known as the Roselawn Centre and also the Showboat Theatre. And oh yeah, they say it's haunted. You see, they say that there's a ghost of a man inside, ghost of a woman, and even children. Stay tuned and watch as we discuss Roselawn Theatre and Roselawn Centre.
How about a bit? How about a bite? What about things that go bump in the night? Niagara's most haunted, a fun place to visit. Why not stay forever and have a scary tidbit?
The Roselawn Centre was built in 1860, a three-story home of Upper Canadian Victorian architecture. It became the Port Colborne Club in 1957. The City of Port Colborne assumed operations for the building, and it is used for special events, as well as the Showboat Festival Theatre. And oh yes, they also say that the building is haunted.
Well, as I was stating, not only is it the Roselawn Centre a great place for theatre, for the arts, and just simply to come out and enjoy your neighbours, your friends, and your community, there is a bit of haunting that comes with the Roselawn Centre. And as I was stating earlier, this room that we're in right now, we came from the parlour over there, now we're into a main room, and at one time this was a meeting room for a lot of the service clubs. And at the time I was the president of the Kinsman Club, and one of my duties after the end of the meeting was to, in fact, clean things up, put the flags away, put the bell away, and the gavel and all that fun stuff. And I was right here and basically grabbing a lot of the stuff to put away. And I heard something in the back room over here. And as you can see, being an 1800s home, high ceilings, long hallways, very narrow, and at night, as you can well imagine, kind of eerie. But you don't really think much about that. Actually, the noises I was hearing, I thought a couple of my buddies were actually playing a prank on me. So I was kind of chuckling and yelling for the guys, hey, who's back there? So I happened to come down here in this hallway. And of course, you know, 9 o'clock at night, being dark in here, and coming into this area right here, looking down the hallway, as you can see, there's a door down there, and dark, but yet the door was wide open, and the glare of the moonlight was coming in one of the windows, so I can see it clear as day, with respect to it being wide open. Yelled down there, nobody down there, came back over here and just continued on about my way to start putting more things away into the closet. As I came back here and stepped back into the main parlor here, of course I heard the noise again. And now you start getting goosebumps, because I'm yelling for people and there's nobody around, there's nobody answering my, you know, is anybody there? Yeah, what are you guys doing over there? You guys messing with me? Nothing, absolutely nothing. So I went back down there again and checked and looked down the hallway, and there was the door open, wide open, with the moon coming in the window and the glare of the moonlight. And I thought, okay, well, must be just me. Come back in here, and just as I'm finishing up and I'm putting things back in the closet there, I heard it again. I heard the noise again. So as I was walking out and shut this door over here and shut the light off, and I'm making my way out of the building, I happened to look down the hallway, and the door was closed. So here the door is closed. As I'm coming down the hallway, the door is closed. So I went down to check it, and just as I was coming down to check it, there was no glare to the moonlight. Okay, and so it was very dark, and I just thought, you know, okay, well, it must have just been my imagination. So as I was the next day, I come into the facility to book our next meeting dates with the general manager, and we came up here, and I was telling him the story. I was telling Fred the story about what happened, and just, you know, thinking nothing of it actually. And he said to me, and we were standing actually right over here, and as we were standing here, and I was explaining to him about the door being open. He said to me, he says, now you're sure, Vance, it was this door? He says, you sure it wasn't this door? He says, you sure it was this door over here? I says, yeah, why? He goes, that door has been locked for the last 4 years. He says, you sure it was open? I says, I'm positive. I says, twice I looked down the hallway. I actually seen the moon, the glare of the moon coming in through the windows. You know, although it was dark here, it was obviously open because I can see the glare from the moon through the window in the room. He said, well, that's impossible. This has been locked for the last 3 to 4 years. There's no way that door could have been open.
Okay, we're sitting in the dining room in the Roselawn Theatre, and I'm here with Roberta Matthews, who is the house manager. And Roberta Matthews has some pretty good stories about ghosts. You've seen them yourself?
Yes, I have. Here, not last summer, summer before for Showboat, I closed the house, I closed the theater, and I go up the back stairs, which are dark, and I have a flashlight, and someone was coming down, and I thought, great, I've got somebody coming in late. So I put the flashlight up to help them see coming down, and it was, we call her Mrs. Carter. I have no idea who she is, but she was standing on the landing, just with her hands like that, just standing. And I stopped because I was startled, not afraid, just startled. And I put the flashlight down. When I put it back up, she was gone.
And what about any other ghosts? Are they bad ghosts? Are they good ghosts?
The man seems rather nasty, Mr. Carter, for lack of a better name. We used to have Christmas pageants. The kids would come with the little nativity play, and we have a little kitchen where we just make coffee, and we would be in there, and that's separate from everything. And there's 2 doors that lead into the kitchen, and I'm in there making coffee, and someone keeps knocking on the door. But when I get there, they're gone. I'm thinking it's the kids from the play, they're having fun. So I stood behind the door, and when they knocked, I threw it open, and there was nobody there. So I assume it was one of the little kids that live here. But they're not nasty, but he can be. My sister was in there that same night, and she was alone, and she didn't believe in ghosts. And he came up and grabbed her rear end, so she came back into the room just white as a ghost.
Well, the woman in the stairs, as far as I could feel as a psychic medium, is that she was the daughter of the original owner. All right, the original owner was very rich, and his daughter was kept under thumb by him. I believe that she was in a relationship outside of marriage with possibly a soldier and had a illegitimate child. Gave birth to the child, the soldier was killed, and unfortunately the child died. So the father, who was this rich owner, was very upset over this entire situation. She was now considered not the right kind of woman for another possible suitor, and he kept her upstairs on the 3rd floor. That's my feeling. However, every time every time someone would knock on the door, she would run down the stairs, and there's a winding staircase there, and she would go down this winding staircase and come to the door, and her father would be, no, get back up there. I think she ended up being emotionally unwell based on all this treatment that the father made. And so upstairs on the 3rd floor, there is like the attic doorway there, and sometimes you can hear noise on the other side of that attic doorway.
Where we're at right now is another part of the original home of the Roselawn Centre. As I said earlier, this goes back to the 1800s. Actually, one of our councillors, one of our city councillors, Bill Steele, his family used to own this home, and he recalls when he was a youngster playing in this his great-grandparents' home. And of course, as a kid, this can be a real playground for a youngster when you look at the size of the building. And it still is a playground. When you look in this area right here, for example, this is a parlor area where people like to lounge when there's different events happening. Over here, we have a bar that's pretty well circles the whole parlor area over here. Of course, where we came from, the stairway, the front entrance, and over here is one of the main living/dining rooms. A lot of meetings in here, a lot of folks, baby showers, as well as get-togethers, family get-togethers happen in this room. As you can see, the history and the heritage of this building with respect to the crown moldings, of course, the trim and the mirrors and the fireplaces, all original, the floors, as well as the doors and the doorways. Over here, we have the sunroom. Yes, you can hear the cracks in the floor. Sometimes you hear these cracks in the floor with nobody even being in the room, which is quite eerie at times. When you're standing here all by your lonesome at night and you hear those cracks as if somebody's walking, but there's nobody actually here. So it's now I have to admit we haven't heard the piano play yet with nobody here, but I'm sure that day will come.
Now, as far as the house itself, on the second story they have sort of a glassed-in room which would be facing, I believe, east and would get a lot of nice sunlight. It would be nice and warm. When I first walked in there, I felt that the owner of the home, he may have had a sister or cousin, whatever, who lived very far away, possibly as far as Stony Creek, who had a little boy about 7 or 8 that was very sickly and more with a respiratory infection, and they traveled horse and buggy all the way to Roselawn, and she left him there with the uncle, and her idea was that he would get the best medical care, that the uncle would get the best doctors in to help this little boy. And I felt like he spent a lot of time in this room under the sunlight getting well. Unfortunately, I don't believe that. I believe he succumbed to his respiratory problems.
So, if we're keeping score here, the Roselawn Centre, the house itself, the mansion, was built in 1860. So that's well over now 150 years old. Why do spirits still linger, or ghosts or apparition? Obviously there's something there. We've had Maravans Badaway experience it, and also Roberta, who is the house manager, as well as other people who have reported seeing, hearing, or experiencing these things. So what is it about spirits, ghosts, apparitions that linger? Are they really trapped? Take, for example, this bottle of scotch, which ironically is about 150 years old. There's not much left. And as we know, liquors, booze, is also referred to as spirits. We know how these spirits got in the bottle and have been trapped all these years, but let's just say I'm going to set some of these spirits free momentarily while you continue to watch.
Well, I have my own philosophy on this. Either our spirits still remain because they have an unfinished business, or they're caught up in a time frame. And even ourselves, I mean, it's a time dimension. Like, we're standing here in, let's say, at Roselawn, and we're in this time, and sometimes with a blink of an eye you think you see a shadow on another side of you, and is that actually somehow delving into the other time? And perhaps things that are emotionally or physically not in balance somehow constantly keeps, like Groundhog's Day, keeps coming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's, I guess we'll never know until we pass over, but I think it's just something like that.
Well, you know, this is the newer part of the building. This actually used to be the curling rink. This actually used to be the curling rink, and now it's been converted into a theater. And just as we're standing here now, we're the only two in here. Did you hear the noise over there just a second ago? Did you hear the noise over there a second ago? And then, of course, I just heard a noise up there 2 seconds ago. So there's no question that there's other things happening besides the obvious in terms of what we're dealing with. But you know, all in all, it's a beautiful facility. I invite anyone to come on out here and not only take part in the activities that are happening that you can see, feel, and touch, but also take part in some of the activities that sometimes you can't see.
watched myself, especially in the theater part. If you sit on the sideways chairs, not facing the stage, there is a door that exits, and I just constantly felt like somebody was there opening and looking at me, and I was totally freezing cold and shivering the entire time I was there. And even though the room does feel cold, everybody that it goes through it always experiences this shiver. And also on the stage, it feels like there was a man on the stage, and yet when you walk through behind the stage, it felt like there was a little boy running through. So I do believe there are spirits in Roselawn.
Well, folks, there you have it. The Roselawn Centre, the Showboat Theatre, located here in Port Colborne, Ontario, Canada. Some really cool stories from Vance Badaway, Roberta, who's been the caretaker here, as well as Susan Carter, who shed some insight on some of the happenings within the centre. So, if you ever have a chance to come down to Port Colborne and perhaps sit in for a theatrical show or just to see ghosts, definitely check it out. It's going to be worth your weight in admission.
How about a bit? How about a bite? What about things that go bump in the night? Niagara's most haunted, a fun place to visit. Why not stay forever and have a scary tidbit?